you've been in real estate and you've been in traditional assets and you've been in stocks, bonds, etc., or your own business, etc., I think that you have, and me too, because I was in those assets, gold, whatever it is, I think we've all sort of deluded ourselves into how genius we are. Because really, by the way, I'm nursing a little bit of a cold. Like, I don't know what it is. It's not really a cold. I don't really have a fever. But my throat's feeling a bit weird. Got a little bit of congestion. I'm nursing it with like thymosin alpha-1 peptides, nicotine, and caffeine, right? That's what's going on here. So excuse me if this is a little bit of a slow video, but I really want to get this message across. Because my get to one Bitcoin message has permeated the souls of so many people that I've heard from people who literally had no hope of ever getting to one Bitcoin, and they're basically at one Bitcoin, right? Because of the message, right? The message was get to one Bitcoin, not for me, not for anyone else, but for you, your family, your lineage. Now, the issue with getting to one Bitcoin is that it really doesn't factor in from a holistic point of view on a portfolio, like what you should be going for, right? If you are above, right now $120,000 net worth, like what should you be allocating to Bitcoin, right? And as a Bitcoiner, the Bitcoin community is going to want to say 100%, but that's not realistic. Right? If you've got a real estate portfolio, you've got an equity portfolio, you've got a business, you've got all this other stuff, like how do you allocate that? It's easy for someone who has no net worth, the $1,000 net worthers, to say, put 100% in Bitcoin. But a person who's got the average millionaire, for example, who's got a home that's worth more than $1 million, and that you'll be shocked how common that is nowadays, right? Like, what do you allocate to Bitcoin, right? And after the conversations I've had, you guys know what conversations I've had. You guys have seen that on X. If you haven't, you need to follow me on X. And also subscribe to the channel so that you get up to date on the type of conversations I've been having. I think I've thought about this after my trip, particularly to New York, that I think the right allocation is you've got to get to 24% Bitcoin. And the get to one Bitcoin thing still holds itself, right? But I'm talking about really for those people in the high net worth category, which a lot of you guys watching my videos are in that category. So I'm now speaking to you. You've got to get to 24% Bitcoin. I think that if you've got a bunch of legacy assets, you've got real estate, you've got equities, you've got gold, you've got, firstly, gold, that's a different debate. Personally, as you guys know, I dumped my entire gold position by November of 2020 and pivoted all into Bitcoin. But I think you've got to get to 24% Bitcoin. If you own a real estate portfolio, you own an equities portfolio, you own a bond portfolio, you own, your own business, 24% of your net worth overall should be in Bitcoin. And I think what you're going to find is that Wall Street is going to move closer and closer to this number over the next decade. Now, the advantage that you have is, remember, in the game of dollars, in the game of fiat dollars, you are competing for your position. And your position basically means what percentage of those fiat dollars do you get to keep are assigned to you. That's the competitive world of capitalism. It's just a game, right? Well, I think 24% allocation to Bitcoin is, if you're, this doesn't apply to anyone, like if you've got a $10,000 net worth, get to one fucking Bitcoin, right? Stop being a moron. But if you're looking at this and you've got a business, you've got property portfolio, you've got, equities, you've got things that you cannot sell, you've got things that you don't want to sell, you've got things that are family assets, legacy assets, etc., get to 24% Bitcoin. That number is the number that not only preserves your wealth, but will slowly set you ahead everybody else at your level. those people at your level, if you're, let's say you're worth $4 or $5 million, you've got to get to that 24% Bitcoin. Because if you don't get to 24% Bitcoin, other people that have Bitcoin will slowly outpace you over time. Now, the good thing about getting to 24% Bitcoin is that when you do get there now, over the next decade, as Wall Street starts to pivot to the closer and closer to this number, you're going to find that your net worth slowly and consistently surpasses everybody else's at your level. Someone who has got, let's say a $5-6 million net worth, your objectives are slightly different to someone who's $1,000 net worth or got $100,000 net worth, et cetera, right? Your objectives are slightly different. You may have a business running, you've got family relying on you, you've got a real estate portfolio that you can't sell, you've got family assets, you've got equities that are in retirement accounts, you've got all these things that, to a certain extent cannot be moved, right? Cannot be adjusted. And I think in your scenario, the number is going to be 24%. You've got to get to 24% Bitcoin. And when you do get to 24% Bitcoin, I think what you'll find over the next decade is that Wall Street is going to move to that number as an allocation. And by doing it now, you're going to stay ahead of the curve and you're going to increase your net worth at a much faster pace than everyone else who's doing exactly what you're doing and who has their net worth in real estate, equities, their own business, et cetera. And if 100% of your net worth is currently coming from your business, because that's, you're an entrepreneur, you've got to figure out how to convert 24% of your current net worth into Bitcoin. If you don't get to 24%, you will be left behind. Your business will slowly drip away wealth as Bitcoin and Bitcoin and the ecosystem of Bitcoin takes over. If you've got real estate and you're hoping that your real estate is going to basically take care of your family, et cetera, what you're going to find is that less and less of these fresh printed dollars find their way into real estate. You're going to find that Bitcoin starts outstripping real estate's returns because of the finality and the scarcity of the asset. So you should figure out what your total real estate portfolio is in dollar terms and figure out how to quickly, efficiently, expediently think about get to 24% Bitcoin. I think that should be the number, the North Star that you sort of aim for if you are someone of means. Now, if you're not someone of means, then get to 1 Bitcoin is still more relevant than you can ever imagine, especially right now when you've got the C-suite of the US government, all the Wall Street C-suite behind you. You've got regulatory advantages, you've got political advantages. If you're someone who's basically $1,000 net worther and poor, you better figure out how to get to 1 Bitcoin as quick as possible. If you're someone with assets that are immovable, assets that are not sellable, assets that you maybe don't want to take a capital gains tax hit on or whatever else, then you need to figure out how to get to 24% Bitcoin. I think that's going to be the number that Wall Street moves to over the next decade. This is a big number, by the way. It's going to end up with, if 24% of current liquidity is put into Bitcoin, you're looking at about an $11 million Bitcoin. And I think it will start there, right? And as you can see, corporates are moving towards Bitcoin. Everyone's moving towards Bitcoin, especially as the Stablecoin Act and all this other stuff is moving to effect. If you want to stay relevant and you want your net worth to not be demonetized by the bullet train of Bitcoin and the absolute finality scarcity that Bitcoin provides to your progeny, to your lineage, to your last name, you must get to 24% Bitcoin. Because ultimately, there's always only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.